Hi, welcome to another episode of Jay Hunto's Garage. This is an OPP episode, and today we've got Derek Penner and his Volkswagen something.
Monstrosity.
Tell us about this car. What did you do?
So, I was autocrossing Miatas. They're the most autocross car in history. I didn't want to have the same car as everyone else, but I love the Miata. In doing so, I looked around at exosets, which are a space frame car using the drivetrain from a Miata, and ended up realizing that I could use the roller skate from a Miata and build my own car with it. Knowing that the suspension geometry from a Miata is very good, handles well, and that it would be fast for autocross, it would be easy to use. All I had to do to make it work would be build my own frame to mount the front and rear subframes from the Miata. I used the Miata subframes and all the Miata drivetrain from a wrecked Miata. It allowed me to mount just the top of the shocks and build a main frame that connect the rear and front and rear subframes from the Miata. By doing so, it saved me hours and hours of fabrication, as well as now I have the suspension from a Miata, so anytime I go to change stuff, I can go with Miata aftermarket parts or even stock parts. Mount the top of my shocks, and I'd have a rolling driving racing car that weighed much less than a stock Miata.
So all of that is all you had to do, right?
That's it. I threw a cage on top and the bug shell on top and went. It's a total of 1,700 pounds, which is very, very, very light. It's hard to keep the rear end behind you because of it, but when you get racing slicks and go autocrossing, nothing touches it as far as handling goes. I built this car for the GRM challenge, and in the challenge, pretty much the main rules are you have 2019 or whatever the year is amount of dollars to build your car. So starting with a wrecked Miata, I was able to steal all the drivetrain for a few $100s. I had to buy the metal to build my frame. I got a friend that donated the front shocks to me because a stock Miata shocks would have been up here and looked like a Baja Bug. It was not the look I was going for. So those were my main expenses on the car. Since then I've had a lot of little ones and changing things up, but even my headlight brackets are from a Miata, cut up and used. Everything that makes this car run was stolen from that wrecked driving donor. And doing it that way versus saying getting a motor used and then getting a wiring harness somewhere else and then getting all these little parts you need made it really easy to build it, made it faster to build it. I started building it in October of 2015 and took it for my first drive on my birthday, March 18th, 2016. So approximately 5 months, in which I only spent maybe 2.5 months of it really working in the evenings and weekends. The reason it was so easy and so fast to build was, again, using the Miata subframes. And you can look online, and it's also called a roller skate, a Miata roller skate. By using that, it saved me so much time. I didn't have to mount anything steering wise. I just rebolted up what was Miata steering. I didn't have to make motor mounts. I didn't have to make rear end mounts. All of that is just stock on a Miata, which is also nice when I break something, because we know I will. I can just go get stock Miata parts.
Perfect. Right, and you just took me for a ride, and there's two words that came to mind while we were going for a ride, and that was hilarious violence. I'll bet the neighbors really appreciate when you come through the gated community.
As long as I don't gun it. Yeah, it's brutal.
It's loud, it's fast, and it's like no other carnival ride you've been on before.
It is fun. Definitely gets old when you're cruising down the highway, but it makes up for it in the smiles you get and just being able to relax and be in a cool car. So this is a variable vane turbo, which means it has an actuator that slowly opens it up as your RPMs raise. So it builds boost starting at 2100 RPMs. When it's wide open, it starts building boost at about 3300 RPMs. So it drives much more like a big motor instead of a turbo motor.
So Derek, what's the story behind the 16 and the cone there? Is that how many cones you took out the first time you took this out on Autocross?
It probably was more than that. The first time I took it out, it did not have the bug shell on it. It had bald stock Miata rims and tires. And so I think I was driving backwards more than I was driving forwards. So when I autocrossed it with the stock Miata tires, they were bald, they were old. It didn't want to stay behind me, but it was so much stinking fun because it was like I was on ice. I had a little bit more grip than that, but it was just so much fun to try to keep the car behind me and finish the course without hitting too many cones or hitting anyone on the way. So future plans for the car. I'm pretty happy with the power plant. I've got to throw a clutch in it, but that's not really a modification. I plan on doing the interior to be wood. I do a lot of woodworking, and so it kind of feels like a shame to not have what I do in my car. So if you've ever seen the deck of like a 50s Chris Craft boat, it will look like that inside, as well as I have a rust colored leather that's going to be on my racing seats. And then the footwells and stuff will just be raw steel. And that's my plan inside. I don't think I'm ever going to put fenders or really mess with the body. That's all where it is. It will never ever be painted in my book. I'm a little scared of all the rock chips coming off these front wheels hitting the side of the car. It's starting to turn from green to white and white to rust, but we'll go with it and see how it goes.
Derek, so you told me earlier about a story about the back of this car and its history. Why don't you share that?
So I knew I wanted to build this car for a long time. I'm really good at starting projects. I'm not so great at finishing them. So I told my wife...
Typical male.
Yes. I told my wife that if I was going to start this car, I was going to finish it. And that she had to be willing to let me do what it takes, evenings, weekends, and that I wouldn't do it unless I had her permission because it wouldn't get finished.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, sir. In my head, I was a few months away from actually buying the shell. I already had the wrecked Miata, but life's always busy and when to start something is always hard. I spend way too much time on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and looking on Craigslist for some sheet metal for a backsplash in my kitchen, I came across this bug shell. The guy had listed it as maybe good for sheet metal scraps, maybe this or that. It was $50, and in his mind, it wasn't worth anything because it had had a rear engine fire. So if you notice, the paint stops right in here and follows these lines here because this was all majorly on fire and has rusted completely. Now, when you look up here on the roof, I have rust lines where the headrests of the seats were, along the side where you had more material in the headliner, and then another rust line where the front headrests of the seats are. And that's really the main rust spots on the car, which helps a lot as far as preserving it, keeping it intact and in good shape.
Yeah.
So a few of the stories of when I've been stopped or talked to about my car. There was this one time I stopped at a gas station, hooked up the gas pump, went in to get a drink, came back out, and there's 4 or 5 guys standing around talking about the car. One of the guys asked to sit in it and if I could take his picture, and I said sure, absolutely. And as I'm helping him in, I've got this very large, very wide person. He looks at me and he goes, "Do you have any butter? Because I think you're going to have to lube me up to help me get in and slip past the bars." That made me laugh so hard, and I still laugh about it thinking to this day.
So the question is, did you run back into the store and get some butter?
No, sadly, I didn't feel like having butter all over my car or taking that picture.
But didn't mind the butter idea, putting it on the guy?
It's still a little bit out of my league. So another time I pulled up to a stoplight. I had this at least 70-year-old lady roll down her window, look at me and go, "Is that your toy?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, it is." She goes, "That's an awesome toy." And really, you get comments everywhere you go. I really built it just to have an awesome, fun car to autocross, be lightweight, and nobody in the autocross or racing scene really does patina, especially a few years ago when I built it. And so that was just me being different. And the amount of comments, the smiles, the times I get stopped and talked to about it is just beyond what I expected. But it's been fun, and it's fun to enjoy. My name's Derek Penner. I'm from Austin, Texas, and this is my bug, Miata bug, MXB, whatever you feel like calling it. Fun, fast, crazy. That's the name of it in my book.
Well, thanks, Derek, for everything. Thanks for letting me
Absolutely.
come out and take a look at your bug, and thanks for telling us about it.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. Don't forget to watch Jay Hunto's Garage. Hit the subscribe button.